And we're golden. Okay, so what questions do you have for me? Or should I just bounce into new material? Yeah, that's what I thought. Renata. Voter turnout. Simply, the definition of voter turnout is how many voters turn out compared to registered voters. That's the figure compared to registered voters. Okay. Now, voter turnout is affected by a multitude of factors. But the easiest way to think about voter turnout is that the larger the election, I mean like presidential election, you can't get much more larger than that, will have the greatest amount of turnout. And the smaller the election, the more it's perceived as being insignificant, the less voter turnout. For example, I don't know if I shared these numbers with third period. No, I didn't. I shared them with third period, maybe not sixth. Out of Mascot. Now, I don't know how many registered voters there are, but there's got to be over a few thousand registered voters in Mascot. A few thousand at least. There's only 251 people showed up to vote. I know this because they showed results. 251. I was one of those one. And it's dramatically affected by age. Obviously, the older you are, the more likely you are to vote. Social economic status, obviously, and I have no problem saying this, Mascot is a poor area. I know that. That's why I bought my house there, because it was cheaper. It's a poorer area. It's a more rural area. It's not like walking into Dr. Phillips and Windermere or, Islesworth. I mean, I know that. You're going to see a greater participation there. Now, let me say this. Being wealthy or being poor, I'm not giving you the reason why that affects voter turnout. All I'm saying is it does. Okay, I'm not saying poor people are stupid and they should know to vote. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's empirical evidence that if we look at the facts and figures, if you are more financially successful, you have a more likelihood of voting. Doesn't mean that you should vote. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't vote. It means that it's just empirical evidence that there is a greater chance of you voting. And the more educated you are, the Caucasian whites have a greater likelihood of voting than African Americans. But that is changing, specifically in the African American community, okay, especially since '08. We know why. It's not a racist thing to say. Is a lot of people got out to vote because the African American community finally had somebody they could put their vote behind. They connected with President Obama. Will they connect with Hillary? That is what the Democrats have to do. They have to connect with that African American vote. And that's what they're trying to accomplish with Marco Rubio. They have to connect with the Hispanic vote. That is the one true vote that has not been tapped out yet. Oh, Lord, here we go. That's the one true vote that hasn't been tapped out yet. And that is where Trump is going to hurt. Because what group does he connect with? White, but not necessarily all white, because he can't connect with the blue-collar workers. He's connecting with a group of people that are frustrated. And let's be honest, there are a lot of frustrated people. A lot. I mean, campaign finance, and there's no one can say campaign finance isn't in a good state right now. They're going to spend over $1 billion per party to win or to lose the presidency. Here's an opinion. That's not right. $1 billion. It's going to be well over $1 billion in 2016. And that doesn't include primaries, what they're already spending. So just think about that type of money. So voter turnout is affected by many things, but it's how many people actually vote compared to registered voters. A long, roundabout answer. More questions, loving them.
Wait, including registered voters?
Like out of registered voters. Out of registered. Obviously, yeah, just out of registered voters. Yeah, exit polls is just pretty much the process of collecting data. Typically, exit polls are done at the exit of someone voting. After they vote, they're polled after they're done voting. That's where the exit part comes from. But exit polling happens all the time. So don't just think of exit polls as happening pretty much right after someone votes. That's why we get it like a consensus, like it would be great if this was in an election year, but it's not, unfortunately. And we could look at exit polling and stuff like that. And that's the polling that's done after the voting. And it's done on big elections. But exit polling itself, not just exit polling, but polling itself is happening all the time. That's how we have, Carson this morning took a jump in the poll. Again, he is connecting. Yeah, you can have a donut. He is connecting to the moderate African American community, which is a growing community. So he might be able to tap into that African American community. That's something that would be very positive for the Republican Party and should worry the Democrats a great deal. But that's that polling side of it. Good questioning is unbiased questioning, where you don't push with your questioning. And what I mean by unbiased is that you don't push someone towards an answer through your questioning. Like, do you support a woman's right to choose? Well, of course I choose a woman's right to choose. Oh, then you support abortion. Well, wait a second. Maybe I don't support abortion. So, again, that would be a biased question. No one's going to... There are people that are going to say, I don't support a woman's right to choose. But more likely than not, people are going to say no. And then you can frame that data into whatever way you want. That's biased questioning. That doesn't achieve anything. So good questioning is done in a very neutral way. Also, the way you ask questions, telephone, mailers, internet polls, all these types of things play a role. And the sample size is very, very important. The larger the sample size, the better. You don't want to have a national poll where you ask 40 people. That's not a national poll. But maybe 4,000, that'd be pretty darn good. That'd be a really good poll. 4,000, that's a big number. And it's very, very expensive, though, too, to do those types of things. Yeah. That's basically it. And then we have the different types of data. We talked a little bit about skewed data. Skewed to one side, where it's, one side wins, dramatically. We have binomial data. I don't know if that was in your book. Might have been. What does it sound like? By two. So really, that's like the yes or no questions. That's the yes or no question. And then you have the typical bell curve. You ever heard the bell curve before? The bell curve data, where a lot of people right in the middle, and then you have lower. That's the typical, the bell curve. That's what you want to see in teaching, where you're going to have some kids fail, some kids get A's, but a lot of kids are right in the middle of the C, B range. That's a bell curve because it looks like a bell. I forget. Well, I don't need to teach you that because it's like in some colleges, like the Ivy League schools, other than Princeton, they have like a set way of saying like only 5% of the kids get A's, certain percent of kids get, and no matter if the lowest kid got a 90% on the test, if he or she in the lowest percentile, they get an F. Yeah, that happens at all the Ivy League schools other than Princeton. I forget, there's a specific name I should know as a teacher, but I have failed you miserably. But yes, that's done at the Ivy Leagues. Because all these kids going into the Ivy Leagues, sorry, this is going on a little tangent here. All the kids going to the Ivy Leagues are all what? Studs. I mean, they're all amazing, brilliant young men and women. They're all going to get A's. So you have to differentiate between them a little bit. So they have this curve that I forget the name of it, where it's broken down percentage. 10% get A's, 20% get B's, 30% get C's, 20% get D, whatever. It equals 100%, obviously. And then the lowest percentile gets F's, no matter what's, even if you got a 90%.
That's a little dramatic. Like, why can't it be a B or something?
Because then you take away what a B is. Hey, then don't go to Ivy League. Hey, I wasn't mentioning to have Ivy League. Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain reapportionment?
Yes. Reapportionment and apportionment are the same things. Reapportionment is just doing apportionment for a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time. Apportionment is the process of redrawing congressional lines, district congressional lines, in order to have the same number of population inside those districts. Because you want to make sure that a voting districts all represent, or that one person, those single member districts, represent the same amount of people, so their votes are weighted the same. Obviously, they're all going to be counted as one. That's never going to change. But if you have one district that only has 40,000 people in it and another district that has 500,000 people in it, the people with the 40,000 have a greater weight within that vote, have a much more weighted vote. Yeah, it still counts as one, but their vote is worth more in the grand scheme of things. There's some court cases that we'll talk about. Obviously, we didn't talk about court cases yesterday. We'll pick that up next week. But there's some suing on that because it's the theory of one person, one vote theory. If you have unequal distribution of population in congressional districts, that's not a fair, equal system, an equitable system. So that's a reapportionment, is the process of redrawing those lines. Now, the bad version of that is gerrymandering, where you draw district lines that are favorable towards one party over another. And they can draw along race lines as well, too, because you know how African Americans vote or have a tendency to vote. You know where Democrats live. You know where Republicans live. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to everything. But you know, if I walk down to Celebration, okay, when I was getting my master's degree, I don't know, 3 years ago? God, was it really 3 years ago? 3 years ago? It was during an election year. Yeah, it was 2012. I did not see many, Barack Obama signs. Just didn't see it. I saw a lot of Mitt Romney signs. Now, if I walk down into, parts of Miami, parts of Orange County, you're going to see a lot of Barack Obama signs back in 2012. But when I'm getting back to gerrymandering, it's that process of drawing those lines so you can make it more favorable for a party so they can then win. You might have equal population, but you draw them in a way that puts more Democrats, more Republicans in certain districts to help them win that district. Even though it's equal numbers, you can do it that way. Because if you look at district lines, they're not like perfect little boxes. I mean, they're crazy looking.
Draws the lines?
Congress. Congress does. And the problem is...
So if like Congress is weighted one side, then they'll...
Yeah. But then you're going to be sued by the other thing. So gerrymandering is slowly becoming a thing of the past. Slowly. But you're always going to have people be arguing about it. Yes? Is it illegal? Yes. It's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional. The only goal of redrawing listed lines should be just making sure the population is equal. That's it. But it's unconstitutional. It's not. You can't go to jail, but it's a violation of civil rights. And there has been lawsuits on it, which we will talk about, or Supreme Court cases. Sir.
Do we need to know any court cases for this?
Don't say do you need to know. You need to know everything. 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 The study guide. Okay? Remember, I don't write this test, and you can call me lazy, you can call me whatever you want. I just can't do it. I can't write multiple choice questions. I've tried, I've failed miserably. I'll show you some of them. They're pathetic. So I don't write this. Obviously, I look through it. The study guide comes from the same exact book as the multiple choice questions. Study guide is your best friend. Okay? When we get into closer to midterm, crash course book. Crash course book. Okay? Other questions? Keep them coming. Good questions today. Ma'am.
Can you explain what political ideology is?
A political ideology is your ideas surrounding politics, around what you feel is important. That's where that conservative liberal thing comes from. Your ideologies on abortion, gun control, education, tax reform, campaign finance reform, constitutionalism, a strict constitutionalist approach, a loose constitutional approach. All those types of things are your ideologies. That is, to gain an ideologies towards things, you go through what process? Political socialization to reach what identity? Your political identity. Your political identities, identify myself as this, identify myself as that, identify myself as blue, identify myself as red. You understand the colors, right? Okay, good. What about the animals? Do you guys know the animals? Donkey is Democrat, so that's easy. Donkey, Democrat. Elephant, Republican. I wish I would have picked like a raccoon. Huh, raccoon. That's not a very favorable animal, though. You know, it is an ass, you know. Oh, that's recorded. Whatever. Dr. Gay swears you guys more than that. Yeah, what could the Republicans, you know, elephant, you know, is seen as a, I don't know, never forgets. All right, moving on. Well, elephant, you know, never forgets. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm not an expert on elephants. Oh. What else? Come on, bring these good questions today. Keep them coming. You feeling that confident? That means I'm going to see nothing but 15s, 16s, and above. Okay. Natalie beat you, just by a smidgen.
How can the minority majority affect the demographic change in a negative way?
The power of the minority groups. And when I say minorities, don't always go to the immediate thing of what? Race. Don't think that way. Because that's going to hurt you on FRQs where you middle-aged minority. Oh, black, Hispanic. You know, don't think that way. Think whatever group does not hold the majority on an opinion. That is the key. How they can affect it is by bringing attention to the problem, to the lack of civil rights. Now, there's something I want to teach you today. Okay, it is new, and I'm not sure it's on, but it fits in really, really well. It is known as the process of democracy, and there are two types of processes of democracy. I don't know if this is in your book yet. I would be shocked if it's not in your book, but it might not be in this chapter yet. But it's very, very important to understand how the minority groups can affect things. Now, the process of making laws we'll get to, but you guys already have a general idea. You know, Bill, you know, talks about it, go to the floor, you know that stuff a little bit. It's not a big deal. But the overall theory behind it, there are two within the democratic process. One is known as substantive, like substance. And again, this is being recorded, so you can go back and listen to it. And procedural. Procedural. I'm going to give you a very brief description of both. If you don't understand it, don't freak out. I will teach this many times. And then we'll make the connection. You know, the spider web theory? We got to make these connections, okay? Now, typically, the substantive is supported by the minority groups. Now, what kind of clues can you get by just the name of substantive? Not subsidies, not substitute, the substance of the law, the substance of the bill, what it makes it up. So when you're using a substantive democratic process, when you're operating with that type of theory, you focus on the bill itself. You focus on the nuances, on the characteristics, and what the bill does. You're not concerned with the process or how it goes from committees to the House floor, debates, voting, all that kind of stuff. You don't worry about that. You focus on the bill itself. Procedural is kind of the opposite of that. And it is supported more by the minority or by the majority group. Procedural focuses on the process of making the bill, and they put their trust in the process. Okay? When we make a bill to a law, it's a very structured process. You know, committees, subcommittees, you know, discussions, debates, votes. Then obviously it goes to the floor for debates and voting and then signing. It's a very procedural process. So the majority people, the people in the majority say, if we follow this process, the bill's going to be fine, because it's such a stringent and difficult process to go through. 90% of bills never even come out of committees, let alone make it to a vote. So they put their focus on the process. We need to follow the procedure of making a bill to law. And if we follow the procedure, the bill will be a positive one because obviously it made it through the process. The minority group wants to focus on the actual substance of the bill because they can't rely on the procedure because they're in the minority. They're in the smaller group. So they want to focus on the bill itself and not be so concerned with the procedure. Do you see the differences there? One focuses on the bill, one focuses on the process. And you can see how one is favored over the other when we have when the majority group focuses on that procedural group because they put their trust in that. I mean, we follow the process. Obviously, the majority of people wanted this bill. Why don't we have this bill? But then we have what do we run the risk of? You can come on in. What do we run the risk of when we follow procedural? See if we can really connect the dots here. Now, well, policy gridlock can always happen in any of them. But that's very impressive that you know that.
Tyranny of the majority.
Yes, tyranny of the majority. Tyranny of the majority, okay? We can take away the rights of others. We can follow the process and take away, gay rights. We could. Obviously, there's a larger group of heterosexuals than homosexuals. So that's the problem there. But here's the other problem. Substantive, do we ever get anything done? Policy gridlock. If the majority of people want this, why don't we have it? What about tyranny by the minority? You know, I have never seen that term. I might throw that out to the AP community, see what people think about that. They might call me a crazy person. But tyranny by the minority, where the minority takes away the overwhelming support of something, Halloween, as the example I gave you guys, Halloween, because of a few. Because they're focusing on the substance so much instead of the procedure. The procedure showed 98% of people wanted this. Why are we letting the 2% say no? And win? That's a very substantive idea. We're looking at the substance of the bill, and we're allowing the minority to control it more than others. You get that? We're going to talk more about that. There has been one FRQ that I know of that talked about procedural and substantive. I'm trying to remember what year, but I don't remember. Other questions? We feeling good? Feeling good? Please, let's focus on this today. Unfortunately, come into the multiple choice with a clear strategy today. I don't want us just to attack a question. Come in with a strategy. Come in with a step. Come in with a plan. Because what I'm seeing a lot are silly mistakes. And silly mistakes occur when we don't go through a process, right? We jump. We jump a step. Like you notice in math, we do everything sweet, great, and then we forget how to add two numbers together. Come with a process. Come with a plan. I might ask you, Chloe, what was your plan today? He says, well, here's my plan, Mr. Clapper. And this is the different strategy that I used to use. I cover up all the answers with my hand. This is the plan that Erin Lafferty used last year, and it obviously helped her a million times. Cover up all the answers. And then what she did is she read the question, read it really well, picked out the theme, and then thought in her brain of everything she knew about that theme. Everything. I know this about this, I know 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 this, and then goes to the questions. That's the strategy she used. Whatever, if you use that or don't, a lot of kids didn't like it. I made them try it one time. They didn't like it other than Erin. But come in with a strategy, all right? Come in with a plan. Pick out the theme, read each question, then force yourself to reread the question again, and then pick an answer and move on. Maybe that's your thing. Maybe it's the double check theme. And you are not allowed to change your answer today. Period. Period. Once you put an answer in or circle it on your paper, it is done. If you change your answer today, I'm giving you an hour.
So no erasers.
No erasers. No changing of answers today. Sir?
Well, what if you were about to change it and you got it wrong?
What if you miss it?
That happens.
realize you're clearly wrong.
If you find that you're clearly wrong, that's another story. But if you're between two, once you go with one, you go with it. You guys know what I'm referring to here. The going back and forth and then no. If you clearly know you misread a question. But again, I want you to come astray. Read the question, read the answers, pick your answer, and then reread the question again. I want that done today. Take your time. You're going to get 1 minute and 25 today per question. So whatever amount of time that is. Have a great day. Adios, muchachos.